Thank you. What I'm going to talk about is some research that Leanne Rylands and I are doing at Western Sydney University with looking at the attitudes and expectations of our first year students. We heard about student evaluations of units, but we decided to take a slightly different approach and look at what do the students think when they come into a unit, what are their expectations, what are their attitudes towards mathematics. And will somebody please throw something at me if I start talking for too long, because I probably have more slides here than I need. So we were looking at, as I said, attitudes and expectations. We know, particularly with our university, we have a lot of students who are very underprepared mathematically. We know that they're not utilising the support services. I should probably say I work for the Maths Education Support Hub at University of Western Sydney, which is provides mathematics support across the university. At the moment we're running bridging courses for new students. And I also teach into the School of Mathematics, teaching an early engineering mathematics unit, so I kind of see this from two directions. So we know that students are arriving underprepared, and there's considerable research that says that a lot of at-risk students don't use support, and a lot of students don't believe that they need to use support. So how is it that we know that the students are underprepared, but it doesn't seem that they do? We see poorly prepared students. We have high failure rates, and I'll show you the fail rates in these units in a moment. What do the students see? What do they think when they arrive at university? Do their perceptions change over a semester? So we conducted a survey in the first lecture of a number of maths units, and then we conducted another one at the end of the semester. We also compared that with the results for the units. And how well do students' expectations align with reality? Well, I'll let you make your decisions about that in a moment. So, two surveys and the final grades. I have talked a little before about, at a couple of conferences, about the first survey that we did first semester last year. I've now got some of the results from the end of semester, and we have some more results to put in from the same survey that we did again in second semester, still to come. So we went to three of our introductory first year units, Fundamentals of Mathematics, which is quite a small unit, mostly for industrial design students. Mathematics for Engineers Preliminary, which is the unit that I take, which is a unit that was introduced about 5 years ago because more and more of our students weren't meeting the assumed knowledge for Maths for Engineers 1, which was good two unit or intermediate or advanced mathematics. Unfortunately, at least half of our students have either general mathematics or only year 10 when they are accepted for university engineering. Quantitative thinking is a unit that's predominantly for science students. Again, we see a lot of the lower end there, students with general mathematics. Most of these students, it's their first time at university, and as we said, they have a poor maths background. So we surveyed them, we asked them what their maths background was. That was scary. We asked them their attitudes to mathematics, which was not what we expect. The answers that we got were not what we expected. We asked them what did they expect their final grade would be. And we asked them this at the beginning of the semester and again at the end after they'd done a number of in-class tests, the usual sort of assessments through semester. And we also asked them to self-assess their skills in algebra, statistics, trigonometry and calculus. Now I won't talk much about that in this talk, but that was also kind of scary. The number of students who had no calculus background, had done either general maths or only year 10, who assessed themselves as being competent in calculus was rather scary, which does make us wonder whether they even understand the terminology, which is something else that needs to be thought of when we're writing assumed knowledge. If they don't know what the word means, then how can we assume that they know about it? You can see there the response rates. This was first semester last year. We have similar sorts of response rates for the second semester. So the first thing we learnt was that only about half the students were at the first lecture, which is also scary. This was the word cloud for the question, what is your attitude towards mathematics in the first survey? And you can see what predominates, which kind of surprised us because a lot of these students are the ones that we expect or we hear from are the ones who are saying, why do I need mathematics? I don't need mathematics. I don't want to do mathematics. I'm only doing it because I have to. And yet the overall predominant word was enjoy in their comments. And this was an open comments. We typed it in. I've used word cloud in R to pull out the words. You can see a few of the comments there, just a couple that we've picked out. But this term of enjoying or liking mathematics was quite common. The word don't does appear somewhere in there. I can't see quite where it is at the minute, but it does appear. So you might think, well, maybe it's don't enjoy, but what we also did was to look, whoops, that goes quickly. No, it won't go back. That one. What we did was to look at the associations between the words in the comments, and you'll see, and the links there are based on the strength of association, and you'll see the strongest one there down the bottom centre is don't mind. So even though that negative word is there, it's associated with something which is a positive comment.
Excuse me, Don, is that
Yep.
Lexi-Mansa?
No, that's R. R, the statistical package R, using just one letter R. It's the open source. It's an open source version of SPSS, if you like, and a couple of text analytic packages for that. I'm happy to let you know what they are later. So there you can see what the associations are. They're generally positive. The strongest ones, positive towards, up on the right there, and as I said, don't mind. When it comes to their expectations, what do you expect to gain from this course was, I think, the question. Again, two words stand out. And again, it's very positive. Although a lot of them are saying things like, we expect to revise our high school mathematics, there seems to be an expectation amongst these students that all the mathematics that they're ever going to need to know has been met in high school, which is also kind of scary, especially when a lot of those students are either general maths or year 10, sometimes even less than that. Confidence, building confidence. Engineer comes in there because a lot of the group were engineering students. But skills, better skills, greater skills, improve. As you can see, it's all positive. So coming in, they seem to be very positive. And again, there's the connections between words: greater understanding, better understanding, revision skills, improve level, and so on. So again, all quite positive comments. Towards the end of the semester, we ran this survey again in week 14, generally in tutorials because there were more students in the tutorials. We still only got about half of the students. Well, we have two surveys for about half of the students who did the first survey, but we did collect about 2/3 the number of surveys in the second question, in the second round. And again, enjoy is still the most common word. A lot of these students have failed tests through the semester, have had problems, but there still seems to be this very positive attitude towards mathematics. I do like that comment, I do not know as much as I thought I knew. That's perhaps one piece of recognition and realisation through the semester. And the comments again were generally that they felt that they had improved greatly. Again, the word cloud, word correspondence, still fairly positive. Enjoy kind of at the centre there with lots of words linked to that. Good interest. Although words like difficult are now starting to creep in, so it is getting a little more negative. In fact, if we go back there, if you kind of squint a little bit at that, what I've done with some of these words where don't occurred, I've merged it with the other words. So you'll see don't mind is there, but also don't enjoy And there's a couple of other challenge, uninterest and so on are starting to crop up. So the level is going down a little, but it's still, on the whole, quite positive. That first comment, also nice, wasn't very motivating, but my attitude has changed to the better. In the question about expectations was now, what do you feel you've gained from this unit? And no prompting about what they had in the first semester, in the first survey, but we're still getting very similar words coming out: knowledge and understanding, better, improvement. Math is almost fun. Connections there. Down the bottom there, revision, high school, fairly strongly connected. So they do see a lot of this. And a lot of what we're doing in these 3 units is high school maths again. Maths for Engineers preliminary spends half of the semester on algebra, the second half is introductory calculus, so that we hope in 6 weeks to get through 2 years of calculus so that they can then go on to Maths 1 the next semester. Sometimes it works. Confidence with problems, basic confidence, better understand. So again, their responses are very positive through what they think there is happening. This was interesting. These are the grade distributions that we got from Survey 1, Survey 2, and the actual grade distribution overall for the group. So you can see Survey 1, nobody expects to fail. Absolutely nobody that comes in expects to fail. In fact, about 35% of students expect to get a distinction, and about 25% expect a high distinction. So more than half the students, when they come into university, despite the fact that they have a low maths background, expect that they're going to get a distinction or a high distinction for the unit. It's mediated a little bit by the end of semester. You can see 2 there. The high distinctions have gone down to about 10%. We still have about 30% expecting a distinction. And the actual grade distribution, which was for the whole cohort. So there is a little bit of something else that I plan to do, is to look at the distribution for the students who are actually there for the survey, because it may be a little better. The students that are still in the class at the end of semester will probably be doing better than the ones who are not turning up for some proportion. But there is a pretty huge jump there. So their expectations are well beyond what they have. Another way of looking at that, this is looking at each of the levels that were expected through the survey. So the fails, none in the first survey, about 5% by the second survey. Week 14, the last week of semester, about 5% of students are now thinking they might fail. Actually, about 30% did. And you can see where the changes. So, interestingly, the credits went up between the first and second semester. Between the first and second surveys, rather. So more students thought they'd get a credit at the end than did at the beginning. So what can we conclude from it? Well, as I said, students' attitudes are overwhelmingly positive, and they seem to stay that way through the semester. Even though a lot of them have failed assessments during the semester, they've had some sort of reality check. In fact, the students who do mathematics for engineers preliminary do a placement test when they arrive to decide if they go to preliminary or if they move straight into the Maths 1 unit. So they've even had that at the start of the semester, but their attitude still remains positive and their expectations still remain very high. 50% of students expect a high distinction or a distinction, which perhaps suggests that when they arrive they don't really know what the system is that they're coming into, because none of them have failed before. At high school there's always been this option that if I wasn't doing well, I can move down to a lower level, which doesn't exist at university, well, particularly not with these units because they're in the lowest level. And the reality checks of class tests and various other assessments during the semester don't seem to do a lot to mediate that over-enthusiasm. So does this mean that because students have such high aspirations, they feel that they'll pass the course regardless? Does it, how can we correct that? What can we do to make students realise what university study is before they arrive? It's also had some effect for us with MESH. This year I mentioned we're doing our bridging courses at the moment. We changed the advertising for that slightly. In the past we've sent emails to students asking if they need to improve their standards before they come to university. This time we've asked them, do you want to brush up on your skills before you arrive? And it's actually increased our numbers slightly. And the other question, how can we maintain the positive attitude that they seem to have? And I'm out of time, so if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Don? Well, I have a question, if I could, please, Don.
Yeah.
I may have missed this at the beginning, but did you have a breakdown of males and females in the courses?
Yes, we did. It's slightly more males than females because it was a much larger engineering than others. I think the second semester will probably be the opposite way. There was no real distinction between males and females when we did the analysis of the various things we asked.
Okay, so even when it came to what they expected their grade to be and things like that?
There was a slight difference, but I don't think it was statistically significant. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just wondering, did you survey also students with a more advanced maths background?
That's probably the next thing that we want to do.
Because it's interesting that doing year 10 maths or general maths seems to leave these students really positive, which sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it's great if they've got this really positive attitude.
There's also some
get
work
broken
by
in the other units.
Kruger and Dunning, I think, from a few years ago, who surveyed students at Cornell into their perceived abilities in a whole range of different areas, from logical thinking to humour, and found that students in the upper quartile generally underestimated their abilities and the others generally overestimated. So that's possibly that effect as well.
Yeah, Sean? Oh, sorry.
Have you considered giving this to your engineering course, engineering maths 1 or something rather, of course, the next one up?
That's probably something that we're thinking of doing this year, and our advanced, our Maths 1A and our Stats for Business units, which are more mainstream units, and see just how the results differ. We were curious to see just what was going on with these students, though, who we knew were underprepared, and why so many of them felt that they should be passing and complained when they didn't. But yeah, that's certainly a direction to go.
My comment on this is that from the student's perspective, they've been led into the university into a particular program. Probably in their view, they wouldn't expect the university to take them if the university didn't go one get through. So from that sense, it might bias them to be naturally optimistic about their chances of success. Just wondering if you've got a comment about that.
I'm inclined to agree with it, but I think it comes back to this idea that we have, at least in New South Wales universities, of assumed knowledge, which students seem to either ignore or not be told about and not understand what they're expected to have. And everything comes back to the ATAR or to early acceptance. Some of you probably saw those articles in the last couple of weeks about the number of early acceptances to universities and the discrepancies there.
Let me tell you this, the assumed knowledge is not everything, because we have prerequisites at my university. And we let students in and we still fail in 40% of times, first year maths. So prerequisites aren't necessarily the be all thing, there's more to it than that. But I think trying to put across an honest perspective from the point of view of the university, what the chances of success are, is something that we'll need to work on.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, thanks very much. We thank Don Shearman for his really impressive presentation.